Make yourself comfortable on your back. And bring your right hand onto your belly and your left hand onto your heart. Take a few full breaths and notice how your body moves underneath your hands. And start to practice the two-part breath. So as you breathe in, feel your belly rise underneath your right hand, and then your chest rise underneath your left hand. And as you exhale, which part of your body falls or empties first, your chest or your belly? Might take a couple of rounds of practicing to notice what comes most naturally. And then whatever comes most naturally to you, settle into that wave-like motion. So breathing in, feel your belly fill and then your chest fill. And then as you breathe out, maybe it's your belly empties first and then your chest falls. So keep going with this pattern of breath. So the word embodiment is defined as a tangible or visible form of an idea, quality, or feeling. So if we improve our awareness of bodily sensations and reactions on many levels, we are building an embodiment practice. Embodiment practices help us to become more attuned to notice how our body responds to emotional triggers and environmental stimuli through changes in the physical sensations and feelings you experience. So you can practice yoga in a way which isn't an embodied practice where you're just focusing on the physicality of it. However, traditional yoga teachings will always incorporate how our mind engages and responds to practice. The practice can be seen as a mirror reflecting aspects of ourselves back to us. We just need to learn to observe the reflection. As we go through our short practice today, see if you can get more in tune with the reflection. You might notice different sensations, physical sensations in your body in some of the different shapes. So different muscles that you might be using. You might notice yourself getting warm or getting cool in different shapes. And as the more you practice this and you get used to noticing how you're moving your body and then how that informs your inner landscape, you might start to notice back bends. The category of poses known as back bends might inspire a certain type of emotion, whereas forward folds inspire a different, hip opening, a different one there. So this is just another level of paying attention so that we can move towards this embodiment practice. So as always, layer in curiosity and kindness and see where it goes. You can wiggle your fingers and your toes, circle your wrists and your ankles, and then draw your knees up into your chest. Your knees might be together, there might be some space. You might like to hug in really tightly and maybe even lift your head and shoulders up off the mat. And then bring your head and shoulders down and roll over onto one side. Come to your hands and your knees. And have your toes tucked under, sit your hips back to your heels and walk your hands forward. Come right up onto the tips of your fingers and let your chest sink down. Maybe your head touches the mat. And you plant your palms down, come up onto your hands and your knees. Tuck your toes, lift your hips, come into down dog, keep your knees bent. Press into your hands, connecting to the mat through the tips of your fingers, the heels of your hands. And what does the mat feel like underneath your fingers? What sensations are you getting? And pedal your right heel down to the mat as you deeply bend your left knee. And then switch sides.
Tiptoe your feet forward to the top of your mat. Have your feet about hip width distance apart. Keep your knees bent and hang heavy. 2 full breaths, 2-part breath. Come up onto your fingertips, halfway lift. Deeply bend your right knee, straighten your left leg. Press your left hip out to the left. And as you next inhale, sweep your left arm out to the side. And then switch sides. Bend your left knee, straighten your right leg. Inhale and sweep your right arm up and out. And bring your right hand down, bend your knees. As you breathe in, come all the way up, raise your arms up alongside your ears, and then bring your hands down in front of your heart. Stand on your left foot, raise your right knee. Turn it out to the side, take tree pose without using your hand to pull your foot up. This way you're building strength in lifting your leg and opening it to the side. So if you can stand up a little bit taller. And turn your right knee forward and step back into warrior one shape. So your right heel is down on the mat, right toes face towards the top right hand corner. And just ease into the shape. And slowly opening up the front of your right leg, the back of your right leg. And see if you can angle your right hip forward while keeping your back heel planted down. Inhale, raise your arms. And exhale, bring your arms down behind your back, interlace your fingers, roll your shoulders back. And as you next exhale, fold forward. Your left side of your abdomen, your chest is going to come on top of your left leg. So you could lift your arms way up in the air, or they might be on your back. Look back. Notice if you're leaning over to the left, can you bring your left hip back, your right hip forwards? So your hips are more square towards the top of your mat. And press into both heels, slowly come up. And release your hands back in front of your heart, lift your back heel, bend your knee, and step to the top. Take a full breath. And stand on your right foot, raise your left leg. Turn your knee out, plant your foot. So practice lifting it high. And angle your left hip forwards as your right knee sort of presses down and then to the back. And turn your knee forward. Slowly step back, warrior one shape. So you can bring your right foot out to the right if you feel a little bit wobbly. And then again, ease into it. Might take a bit to open up the back of your leg. Might feel tightness in your calf or in your heel. Notice if your hips are turning to the sides, if you can keep them square-ish towards the top of your mat. And then inhale, raise your arms. Exhale, arms behind your back, interlace your fingers the opposite way than you did the first time. Inhale, roll your shoulders back. You could lift your arms, or they might stay on your back as you fold. Bringing the right side of your abdomen, your chest towards your right thigh. Look back. You might choose to lift your arms up into the air and bring your right hip back, your left hip forwards. Look back. See if you can practice 2-part breath. And press into both heels, slowly come up. And release your hands together in front of your heart. Press your hands together, lift your back heel, bend your knees, step to the top. 1 full breath. Have your feet about hip width distance apart. And bend your knees, sit your hips down and back. So keeping your knees and your feet equal distance apart, create a really strong foundation. Press your hands together and twist left elbow over your right thigh. Have a look at your legs. Your knees might have come together, or your left knee is ahead of your right. See if you can keep both knees in line-ish and start to turn as if you're going to wrap your left shoulder blade underneath your right shoulder blade. Now breathing, come back to center. Keep your hips low, hands together, and then exhale, other side. Take a moment to have a look at your legs. See if your right knees come ahead, bring it back. Strong core, strong legs. 2-part breath. And breathe in, come back to center. This time stand all the way up. Raise your arms up. And as you exhale, arms wide, fold forwards. Plant your hands and come into your variation of plank pose. So plank on your knees or high plank. Have your heels lifted and press out as if you were pressing into a wall behind you. Do a little movement with the upper back. As you exhale, pull and round your upper back just a little bit. And as you inhale, you're going to bring your chest forward just a little bit. So not a big movement. Exhale, round and press. Inhale, chest forward just a little bit. Your pelvis stays relatively neutral. Exhale, round and come forwards. One more time. And then slowly lower. When you get all the way down, press the tops of your feet to the mat and bring your hands off the mat, right up on your fingertips, elbows lifted. Press your feet into the ground, tuck your chin in, and roll your way up. And slowly lift, and your chin comes up last, and slowly lay yourself down. So matching your wave-like breath motion with this wave-like spine motion, lifting up heavy and engaged through your legs, and then waving down. One more time. And bring your hands underneath your armpits, tuck your toes, press back into puppy pose. Right up on your fingertips, let your chest sink down. And come to your hands and your knees. Bring your left knee forward to the outside of your left wrist and your right knee to the outside of your right wrist. So towards the top of your mat, big toes touching, knees wide. You might sit up on a block here if that creates a bit more space in your knees. And then lean back. So if your hands don't quite touch, you could put blocks underneath your hands. And you keep your knees pressed down, but lift your pelvis up. Scoop your tailbone forwards as if you're threading it up and towards the ceiling. And lift, 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 pressing up, opening the front of your body, particularly hip flexors, and really squeeze, squeeze, squeeze the muscles around your hips. And then keep the tilt of your pelvis, bring your hips down. So this might be your maximum. Maybe you can come back down onto your elbows. Maybe you can come down all the way onto your shoulders. Either way, whichever shape you end up in, keep tilting your pelvis forward so you really do feel the majority of the lengthening in the big muscles of your thighs, as opposed to sort of arching into a deep back bend. Choose your shape. Be there for 5 breaths. If you're all the way down in your shoulders, come up to your elbows first. And then from your elbows up to your hands with the least amount of twisting possible. Hands on the mat in front of you, and step back into down dog Doing any counter movements or shapes that feel good to you. And bring your knees down to the mat. And you're sitting up tall onto your knees, tuck your toes under. Bring your hands to your hips with your fingers facing forward and your thumbs just along the sort of top edge of your pelvis there. Roll your shoulders back and lift your chest up. So this is a little bit of a front body lengthening. So if you notice when the instruction is to lift your chest up, that you lean back, see if you can keep your pelvis forwards. So this is version 1, working on lifting your chest. Version 2, press your pelvis forwards as you lift up and start to arch back, but making sure your pelvis is staying forward, knees and hips in one line, as opposed to just bending your knees and leaning back like so. Using your hands to support your low back, you could stay up, or maybe you could reach for your heels. Remember to keep pressing your pelvis forward, lift your chest, and maybe you let your head drop back. Practice 2-part breath. If you have your head back, keep it back while you replace your hands to your back. Slowly come up, your shoulders will lift your head. Untuck your toes and then sit. Notice, what sensations do you feel? What's being reflected back to you? And come to lie down on your back. And hug your knees into your chest. With your knees wide, do a little rock side to side. And then keep your knees hugging in. Hold it either to the back of your thighs onto your shins for happy baby. Keep pressing your low back down to the mat so you can feel the whole of your pelvis there, supported on the ground. You might like to be still, or you might like to do a little rock side to side in your happy baby shape. Bring your knees back into your chest. Hug in tightly, lift your head and shoulders up, squeeze into a tight ball. And then release down, set yourself up in the most comfortable position for Shavasana. You can place your right hand on your belly and your left hand on your heart to start with. And then notice the difference as you let go of the 2-part breath. Letting your breath move in and out as it does without trying to control it or making it anything that it's not. Taking a step back more into the witness state. Witnessing the sensations of your body. The air on your skin. And the sounds around you. The smells around you. And feeling your body on the mat and noticing where you are in space. And watching as emotional sensations and mental sensations come and go. And take a deep breath in through your nose. And let all the air go out of your mouth. Do this a few more times as you start to move your hands and your feet. And roll over onto one side. Bring yourself to your comfortable seat. And your hands together in a way where you feel connected. Take a moment of appreciation for each other, for sharing practice today. Appreciation for the yoga practice itself and all of the students and teachers who've come before us. And may practice serve you well.